Hi, my name is Pat, and this is my channel, Book Chat with Pat. I'm glad that you're here. Today I'm going to be doing a brand new original tag entitled The Philosophy of Reading Booktag. This original tag was created by my friend Lekden at Reading from the Depths, and I was tagged by Lekden. Now, in my research, I discovered that there was an older tag from about 3 years ago that was also called The Philosophy of Reading Booktag, but that had entirely different prompts. That was created by Brandon's Bookshelf, and that channel seems to no longer be active. So this is Lekden's new original Philosophy of Reading Booktag. Now, in his video, Lekden explained that he was creating this tag in honor of a holiday whose title translates to Wheel Turning Day. He says in his video, this is the Buddhist holiday recognizing Śākyamuni, I hope that's how you pronounce that, Śākyamuni Buddha's first sermon, where he taught the Four Noble Truths, the foundation of all Buddhist philosophical thought. In celebration of that holiday, I designed an original book tag to explore the philosophy of our reading lives. In keeping in line with the Four Noble Truths, in that original sermon, the tag only has 4 prompts, but they are open-ended enough that you can be as pithy or chatty as you like. And then he says, for the prompts, please share a book related to or exemplifying each prompt as well. Okay, so here we go. Number 1. What is your own personal philosophy of reading? That is, how do you think about reading? What does reading mean to you? How does your reading life affect your non-reading life? Well, I have been a reader forever, I think, for as far back as I can remember. And my whole life, my whole career was also, it revolved around reading, reading literature, teaching literature, helping others to read and to enjoy their reading. I think that the way that I came to understand our literature curriculum in teaching is really indicative of how I see the importance of reading, how I see my own philosophy of reading. We used to say in developing a literature curriculum that we were trying to provide works that would be windows and mirrors. And this is a common metaphor for what curriculum should do, and I think that that's how I see reading as well. Windows, meaning we want our reading to be a way to look out of the window and see others, see the world outside our own world, our own world view. But we also want to read literature that can act as mirrors. Reading should also be a way to help us in some way not only see others and see the world from others' points of view, but also to help us to understand our own experiences and our own world better. And certainly in developing curriculum for almost 40 years, I came to a deep understanding, especially in working with kids, of the need for kids to see themselves and see their experience reflected sometimes in what they are reading. So I think that those are two metaphors that I use as my own philosophy for my own reading. My reading life is increasingly expansive. I read for hours every day and night. I watch little to no television. When I'm not reading, I find that I'm often thinking about reading, either thinking about what I am reading or about what I want to be reading next. I certainly also read, especially in these times, I read for distraction and I read for comfort as well. A book or books that illustrate this idea that I'm talking about windows and mirrors. One book that I saw in my earlier adulthood, a book that served as a mirror for me was Alison Smith's memoir, Name All the Animals. This is a memoir about Alison Smith's own family, about the impact of the loss of her older brother, the impact on her parents, and the impact on her own young adult life. And this is a book that spoke deeply to me and reflected in powerful ways some of my own family's experience. Now, a book that I read that provided windows into the world of others, which I also read as a young adult, was the first autobiography of Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. This particular volume, this particular volume includes that book as well as the subsequent volumes in her autobiography as well. But the first one, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is a coming-of-age story. This tells Maya Angelou's, the story of her childhood, of severe trauma that she experienced. The great strength of character that she showed and that certain members of her family also showed, the role of literature in her life in helping her to overcome trauma, the trauma of sexual abuse, and then also she also experienced horrific examples of racism as well. I didn't have, my childhood had nothing in common with that of Maya Angelou, but this was such a powerful autobiography for me, that I know that I saw into her world in a way that I was able to stand in her shoes, to empathize with her in a really profound way, and that set me off on really a lifetime of reading the works of Maya Angelou. Okay. Number 2, when did you first come to think of yourself as a reader? Very, very young, very, very early on. Like I say, I don't really remember not being a reader. Certainly in my early school experiences, I was already an avid reader. I have vivid memories of the role of reading in my childhood, weekly trips with my mother to the library, belonging to a children's book of the month club and anxiously waiting for my selections to come. a teeny tiny library that I had that I think contained 36 miniature golden books. I have these very, very vivid memories of my books and collecting books, reading books, wanting books. They're some of my earliest memories. I've frequently talked also about the role of Tolkien in my young life and in my early adolescence. On several occasions, I've shown the box set that includes the whole Lord of the Rings, but also The Hobbit, which was a gift from my oldest brother. I don't have the box set anymore. On my last trip to Vermont, I gave the box set to my nephew, who is my oldest brother's son. And he now has a young family of his own, so I gave it to him so that he can read it and so that his children can read it as well. I've talked on many occasions of my, the books that really told me that I was going to be a reader for the rest of my life, that I was going to have a career in literature. I've talked on many occasions about reading F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby when I was in the 10th grade and reading it over a weekend and knowing at the end of that weekend that I was going to major in English in college and that I too wanted to be a literature teacher, like my 10th grade English teacher, who was a profoundly influential role model. I think I've talked on at least one occasion also about my 11th grade experience of reading Albert Camus' The Stranger and going off on an incredibly in-depth deep dive into all of the works of Camus for this massive research project that we were working on, and reading his essays and reading several novels and reading a play. That was probably the first example I have of doing the kind of deep dive that I'm still doing to this day. But those were high school books that I read that confirmed for me that I was going to spend the rest of my life with literature, that I was going to major in English in college, that I was going to pursue a career as a teacher of literature as well. Okay, so number 3, what are some goals or hopes that you have for your reading life? One goal that I have, and this is a goal that I'm going to try to put into effect in the new year, and this is to get back to some of my own goals not dictated by outside events, but goals that are my own goals. I had, before I started my channel, I was doing a deep dive into the works of Charles Dickens, and that has really kind of flagged since I've been doing my own channel here and involved in so many reading events. But I want to get back to my deep dive into the works of Charles Dickens and read Dickens in a more systematic way. When I started my channel, I was also involved in a deep dive into Irish literature because I was planning this trip to Ireland, and I want to get back to my Irish writers. One writer that I discovered last year was Donald Ryan, and I've now read several of his novels. I have a couple more that I would like to read. And when I was talking about reading all things Irish last February or March, this was another author that was recommended to me that I still haven't gotten to. So I want to get back to that, some of my own goals. That also includes my making up for lost time and reading science fiction, a genre that I had never read as a young person, and never read really in my education or in my adult life. And so that's something that I've just sort of started since I discovered BookTube, but I want to kind of get back to I've been reading classic science fiction. I want to read more modern science fiction as well. And another goal, I think, and this is something that I've talked about and a lot of people are talking about, I want to read more for joy. I don't think I do enough of that. A writer that comes to mind, now these are books I've already read. These are Becky Chambers' Monk and Robot series, A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crowned Shy. They're now included in one volume. I read them in 2 separate volumes, but this was, a joyful read for me. That's an example of the kind of reading that I also want to get back to. I want to read with more intention in the new year. And by that, I mean I want to read these kinds of things that I'm talking about. I want to continue to read, do buddy reads. I have had some wonderful, wonderful buddy read experiences. But I want to do more things like that, smaller group things, and a buddy read with 1 or 2 people, as opposed to gigantic events where I tend to feel lost once I get involved in these really, really huge group events. So I want to make some really strong conscious decisions about what I'm going to read and how I'm going to read in the new year. I'm pretty committed through December, but I'm gonna just try to refocus a little bit in January. Famous last words. Okay. And number 4, what is part of your current reading life right now that is important or exciting for you? Well, as many people have discussed, the community aspect of BookTube is phenomenal. It's a very real, very powerful experience. I have developed many really deep friendships through these reading experiences, and I think that is really, really important to me, and it's exciting, and it's very, very fulfilling, and I want to continue to do things like that. I just think I need to do it on a smaller scale. I think those are the things that work best for me. I've also done some deep dives of late into writers, and that is very exciting to me. I talked for 3 months about the reading of Finnegan's Wake and all of the ancillary texts that I was reading to go along with that. It was a totally immersive experience for me, and that's how I love to read, and that's what I want to do more of. We're doing that now with T.S. Eliot as well in a Discord chat, but this sort of total immersion in the the works of an author and the critical writing that's been written about the author, I find that really, really exciting, and it's definitely a distraction also, but it's very, very comforting to me, and it's very fulfilling as well. So that's been exciting, and that's something that I hope to do more of going forward. Okay, so then Lekden says, there is no prompt to tag others, because he wanted to keep this to just 4 prompts, but he says, but please do so anyway. And then he tagged a whole bunch of people, and many of whom I would have been tagging. So I'm going to invite you, if you're watching this, if these 4 questions interest you, they will be in the notes below, and I encourage you to do the tag. And then, as I usually do, I'm going to tag some people in my notes as well. I think these are really thought-provoking questions, and I encourage everybody, if this is of interest to you, to give this one a go. Okay, so that's it. That is the Philosophy of Reading book tag by Lekden at Reading from the Depths. As always, I thank you for watching. I hope that you're doing well. I'll speak with you again soon. Take care.